All right, everybody, here is another video for you, and this one, you definitely need to watch this one. This is going to be long, so settle in, buckle up, because it's about communism. And I say it all the time, the Democrat Party is the Communist Party. And what I get back from you is no, we're not communists, we're socialists. We're democratic socialists. And I find it odd, I find it funny that Democrats now are fully embracing the socialist label. They say things like, I hear all the time, well, fire departments are an example of socialism. You like fire departments, right? You must be a socialist too. We're all socialists. But you've got to understand that today's Democrat Party is not that kind of party. They are a Marxist party, a communist party. And I'm going to explain, because look, that attitude that's the old attitude. That's the attitude, and I did a video about the social contract. I did a video about this, about how last winter, about the transactional relationship with government, where we pay our taxes, and in return, we taxpayers get roads and bridges and fire departments and sewer systems. And then we can debate, okay, should we get schools? Should we get hospitals and, doctors, healthcare? Like we can debate about what should the government do. But you have to understand that today's Democrat Party is no longer that kind of party. They don't believe that the purpose of government is to make sure the roads are paved and make sure that the taxpayers get good value, certain public goods and public services in return for their taxes. Today's Democrat Party is the Marxist party. They're Marxists. And Marxists believe that the primary purpose of government is to punish the oppressors. That's it, because Marxists believe that the world is split up into two categories, oppressors and the oppressed. And so they don't believe in the old, I know a lot of you are still voting Democrat because you believe that the Democrat Party is that old party. Oh, we're just going to tax the rich more, and we're going to get more social safety net programs, and we're going to get, we're going to get certain, we're going to get free health care or something like that. But you got to understand, that's not what today's Democrats, the Democrat Party that you're voting for, that's not who they are. That's not how they think anymore. They believe that the purpose of government is to punish the oppressors. So if you and you can say it's politics, because what they're trying to do is, if they can convince 51% of the people that 49% of the people are oppressing them, and then they say, they offer themselves as the savior of the 51%, and join us, vote for us, and we'll fight that 49%, those oppressors, well, then they can win every election forever, right? That's part of what they want to do. But so what they're doing is they're pitting us against each other, right? They're pitting us against each other, rich people, poor people against rich people, workers against their bosses, black people against white people, gay people against straight people, women against men, children against their parents. Remember, Marx believed that the family itself is an oppressive institution that has to be destroyed. Marx believed all social institutions must be destroyed, overthrown, and the family was part of that. Marxists believe, if you've read, I know that you guys haven't read your Marx and your Engels and your Lenin, Lenin's The State and Revolution, and Herbert Marcuse and Antonio Gramsci and Wilhelm Reich and all these guys. That's why you have me. You have me to read this stuff and tell you about it. And, this crap, I read this crap so you don't have to. So, but the Marxists believe that the parents own the children, and the man owns the wife. And so the women have to be liberated from the family, from motherhood. They believed that motherhood is inherently oppressive because motherhood is, now you're just reduced, women are just reduced to a farm animal. Now you're just like a cow in a pen breeding, you're breeding babies. And they look down on that. Oh, how can you just be a breeder and have babies? That's why abortion is, like I'm pro-choice, but there's a difference between believing that abortion should be legal and should be reasonably regulated, whatever. But the Democrats have elevated abortion. The Democrats, Marxists, they're communists. They've elevated abortion to the greatest thing a woman could ever possibly do. Why? Because abortion is the ultimate symbol of rejection of motherhood, of the family. It is the ultimate symbol of the liberation of the woman from the oppression of family. That's why abortion, that explains, once you get all of this, once you've read all your Marx and your Engels and your Marxists, you start to realize, oh my God, yeah, they're all Marxists, which is exactly true. They are Marxists. It's the same with the kids, right? They believe that the children must be liberated from the family, from the parents. And that's why, who's going to do the liberating? The government, right? Well, who are the agents of government in a child's life? The teachers. Yeah. That's why the teachers, that's why explains all the sexualization of children. And now it's morphed into this weird, into all the transgender and gay stuff. So they want all your kids to be gay, all the kids to be gay, all the kids to be transgender and gender fluid and non-binary. That's what they want, so that they can peel the children away from the parents. They can say, oh, I know who you really are. Your parents don't know who you really are, but I do. I know who you really are. And they can peel the children away and liberate the children from the parents. And guys like George Lukács wrote about this stuff, about how children, as they're approaching puberty, they have these burgeoning sexual impulses, and a responsible parent will teach the children to resist and control and subdue those sexual impulses, because you can get into a lot of trouble if you give in to your sexual impulses. But the Marxists figured out 100 years ago that they can encourage kids to indulge in their sexual impulses. It's like giving a baby candy. The person who's taking the candy away, the baby's going to hate you. But if you give the baby candy, the baby's going to love you. It's the same thing. So that they use sexuality to peel the children, to drive a wedge between the children and the parents. And look, a lot of all this stuff, people are just following it doesn't mean that every teacher in America is a Marxist and they're going home at night and studying their George Lukács, but they're all following the same program, all of them, and they all give money to the Democrat Party, because the Democrat Party is the communist party. They're the Marxist party. They're trying to pit us against each other, divide us up. That's why every liberal mayor and governor, has a slavery museum and a slavery monument, because they've got to constantly remind black people about slavery. Don't forget about slavery. You were oppressed. You were oppressed. Remember, vote for us and we will liberate you from your oppression. But of course, it's a scam. It's a total scam. But it's a scam to gain power, to gain political power. But once you understand all of this, once you get it, then you see it everywhere. It explains everything. It explains the drag queens in elementary school classrooms and libraries. It explains the It explains the pride flags. Remember, the pride flag is gone. The old pride flag used to be, gay rights used to be about, hey, some people are born gay and they should be allowed to be gay, and leave them alone and don't bother them. Don't persecute gay people just because they're gay. But it's not about that anymore. Now it's about the kids. It's about the children. And that's why the pride flag is gone. Now it's the progressive flag with all the different colors and stripes on it, because those stripes represent all of the oppressed people in the world. Because it's basically like the international communist flag now, right? All the oppressed people of the world are included in the flag. That's what it's all about, oppressor versus the oppressed. And once you understand this, you see it everywhere, and it explains why Democrats are so soft on crime. Because to a Democrat, a criminal is just an oppressed person fighting back against their oppression. So they have to be let go. You got to go easy on them. And if you are a victim of crime, well then by definition you must be one of the oppressors, because there is no third category. There is no third category, right? It explains the immigration issue. Democrats love immigrants. Why? Because America is the great oppressor. And so everybody who's not an American is the oppressed, is one of the oppressed people. So all the oppressed people of the world are going to come to America. They're all going to come to America, and they're all going to get free stuff. And you, the oppressor, the American citizen, you are going to pay for everything. It explains everything. It even explains the environmental craziness. You know, the earth itself is oppressed by humanity. Humanity must suffer. It explains everything. So look, if you keep voting Democrat, you are going to get more. You're going to get three things. You're going to get constant conflict, because that's what they do. That's what they're pitting us against each other. That's the whole point of Marxism. And remember, all of this can change in the blink of an eye. They can change their mind anytime they want. So for example, if you're a black person, well, you're oppressed. But if you're a black person standing up at a Chicago City Council meeting complaining about all the illegal immigrants getting everything for free and we get nothing, hey, what's going on here? Boom, now you're an oppressor. See how quickly that changed? If you're a woman, oh, you're definitely oppressed. You're a woman. But if you're a woman complaining about some guy with his penis hanging out in your locker room, boom, now you're an oppressor. You just changed. Whoop, just like that, isn't that? Look at Jewish people. Oh, after World War II, the Jewish people were, after the Holocaust, they were oppressed. Oh, we have to fight for the Jewish people. Now, the new oppressed people are the Palestinians. Now it's okay, even though, now that Israel is strong and wealthy and ferociously defending itself against the people who want to exterminate them, they are now the oppressor. And the Palestinians are the new oppressed people. So now it's okay for the left to hate Jewish people. That's how quickly it changes. It's arbitrary. But see, that's the whole point of Marxism. It's to give, to give these people power. So they want to create a world where they have power. So that brings me to number two, right? Okay, so you're going to get three things. You're going to get constant conflict. Number two, you're going to get horrible elites. Now, so I want to talk about elite theory. So elite theory is this idea maybe 100 years ago. These guys, Pareto, Italian guys, came up with this idea. Maybe you've heard of Pareto efficiency if you know anything about economics. Pareto, these guys came up with this idea, elite theory, that no matter what system we have, the unorganized masses will be ruled by an organized group of elites. And you kind of can't disagree with them on that. But that leads us to two questions. Who will these elites be? And will there be any limits to what they can do to us? So the answer to the first question, who are these elites going to be? Well, in a capitalist system, you're going to have, in an economic-based system, in an economy-based system, you're going to have people from the economic class. You're going to have people like Henry Ford. who figured out how to make cars better. You're going to have problem solvers who figured, like Charles Schwab, the steel guy, not the brokerage guy, the original steel guy, figured out how to make steel. The railroads and shipping, and John D. Rockefeller, who basically saved the whales by saying, hey, instead of slaughtering all the whales for whale oil, why don't we heat our homes with this stuff over here that's oozing out of the ground? I mean, that's basically what he did. These problem solvers, guys like Elon Musk, who came along and NASA had been throwing rockets into the ocean for 60 years. Elon Musk comes along and says, hey, why don't we figure out how to land those rockets and reuse them and make everything cheaper? Even Donald Trump, he builds golf courses and casinos and hotels and office buildings. And Jeff Bezos, you can order something and it appears magically on your front stoop in 3 hours. I don't even know how that's possible. But, so these are the guys who solve problems and who make our lives materially better. They increase the abundance of goods and services in the economy. So in a capitalist economy-based system, you're going to have, those will be your elites. But in a communist system, your elites are going to be Kamala Harris or Pete Buttigieg or Gavin Newsom or these stupidest, most worthless, most useless, most non-productive human beings maybe who have ever existed on the planet. They will be your elites. And, and they're all communists, by the way. Communists. Don't tell me they're not. You probably don't know, like Pete Buttigieg, perfect example. You probably have no idea. Pete Buttigieg's dad is the guy who translated Antonio Gramsci's notes from prison and published the book. Yeah, Antonio Gramsci, the leader and founder of the Italian Communist Party, the guy who came along after Marx and articulated the 5 areas, the 5 social institutions, because Marx said all social institutions will have to be overthrown. And Gramsci came along and said, well, the 5 most important social institutions that will have to be overthrown and turned into tools of the revolution, those 5 institutions are the family, the churches, the media, the legal system, and the schools. And that's exactly what they're doing. That's exactly what they're doing. They're taking everything and turning it into a tool of the revolution, of the communist revolution. The purpose of government is no longer to protect your rights. The purpose of the police, the legal system, is no longer to punish people who violate your rights. The purpose of the legal system is to punish the oppressors and to liberate the oppressed people. That's why they're soft on crime. That's why that poor Ukrainian girl got murdered, brutally stabbed to death in Charlotte a few weeks ago by a guy who had been released 14 times because they don't believe, Democrats do not believe that criminals should be punished because criminals are just oppressed people fighting back against their oppression. Once you understand all this stuff, so going back to elite theory, okay. The second question, remember, was, will there be any limits to the power that these elites, so the first question, who will the elites be? And the second question is, will there be any limits to their power, to what they can do to us? And guns, the perfect litmus test. Which elites want you to keep your guns? And which elites want to take all of your guns? The elites of the left, the elites of the Democrat Party, the Marxists, the communists, they want all of your guns because they want all the power, because they believe they're better than you. They believe, and this is the key to it all, morality. It is a change in morality. So when you vote Democrat, you are changing the morality of America, of Western civilization. It's already changed in Europe. The Enlightenment ideas of natural rights from John Locke's Second Treatise on Government, 1688. This idea that every single one of us has rights to life, liberty, and property, and nobody can violate those rights. That is the base, the foundation of America, the foundation of Western civilization. And the Democrats, the communists, the Marxists, the progressives, they don't believe that anymore. They don't believe that. They don't believe that you have basic rights to life, liberty, and property. They only believe that the oppressed people have rights. Oppressors don't have any rights. That's why they murdered 100 million people last century. It is a change in morality. This is a moral question. So the Democrat Party no longer, this is why, people are fleeing Democrat states like California and New York and Illinois. And it's not because of the economics, it's, the economics of, lower taxes, fewer regulations, less crime. But what leads to that? To high taxes, high regulations, more crime. What leads to that? It's a change in morality. It's a change in this idea that you deserve. From the old idea, the old morality of America was if you earn money, you deserve to keep it because that's your money. That's your property. But Democrats don't believe that. They do not believe that anymore. If you earn money, that money is theirs. That money belongs to the people. It belongs to the government, the agents of the people, the representatives of the people. So, this is a moral question. The Democrat Party is fundamentally changing the morality of America. And so look, and so that leads to the third thing you're going to get. So you're going to get the constant conflict and a world of totally arbitrary rules that can change in a heartbeat, where you have no idea what the rules will be. One day you're on their good side, the next day you're remember Jimmy Kimmel. Remember Jimmy Kimmel when he said during COVID, if a vaccinated person comes in, here you go, here's your hospital bed. But if an unvaccinated person comes in, sorry, he should be left outside to die. That's how quick they can decide who lives and who dies. Just because maybe the day before that you thought you were on their side, you were on their good side, but then you decided, you know what? Maybe I don't want to take this vaccine that hasn't really been tested for very long, and I'm young, I'm healthy, I don't really need it. Everybody I know who's gotten COVID that's young and healthy like me it was like a cold and maybe a quick flu, in 4 or 5 hours I had a fever and then it was over. So why do I need to take this brand new, relatively untested vaccine? Boom! They can decide you're going to die. They can just decide to let you die then. You got hit by a bus? Well, they're going to let you die. They don't care. That's how quickly it happens. And that's the kind of world you're going to live in. An arbitrary world. And this is the point, right? This, like I said, Democrats are non-productive, worthless people. These people like Pete Buttigieg and Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom, they need to create a world where they are in charge, where they're important, where they have power. Because they can't survive, they can't thrive, they can't rise to the top in a capitalist society, right? Because you have to have good ideas in a capitalist society. You have to solve problems, and they have no solutions to any problems. None of them do. So, but the third thing you're going to get, so you're going to get the constant conflict, you're going to get the worst elites, and you're going to get their economics. Communist economics, which isn't good. It's not good. Very bad. And once again, it's about the morality, because you can't get to a communist economics where the state owns the means of production, where you have no rights to private property, where there are no private property rights. And private property is your own body, right? You own your body and you have a right to what happens to your body. Nobody can kill you. Nobody can assault you. Well, under a communist society, oh, they can kill you. They can assault you all they want. They did that. In the 20th century, they murdered tens of millions of people because they no longer believe in the basic rights of life, liberty, property, and that leads you to communist economics. Because our economics in America, the idea that if you have a business, you should be allowed to run your business the way you want to run your business because you own your business. Well, that's the old way of thinking. The communists, the Marxists don't believe that. The Marxists don't believe that you should own anything. And so when you change them, so you can't get to a communist economy until you change the morality of society into a society where if you earn money, the government deserves most of that money. If you own a business, the government will run your business. The government will regulate you, tell you how to run your business. You can't have a thriving economy. And look, we saw this is what the Soviet Union experienced. 70 years of poverty and misery and death because of the morality, because they changed because it was a different morality, not based on life, liberty, and property. So if you, and I know that a lot of you I know, you're busy. You don't have time to think about all this stuff. That's why I'm here, to think about it for you. So look, if you keep voting for Democrats, you're going to turn this country into a communist country. You're changing the morality of America into an arbitrary morality where you have no rights unless the people at the top decide you have rights. And everything, the churches, the schools, the media, the legal system, everything will be transformed into a tool of the revolution. Nothing will be what it's supposed to be. Nothing will do what it's supposed to do. I talked about this in that video. The air traffic control system. It's supposed to be there to direct planes, to keep planes from crashing into each other. But under Pete Buttigieg, what did they do? They spent all their time and energy on DEI, what is that? It's just picking and choosing who should have more rights than the other people. Oh, you're one of the oppressed people, so you get more rights. You're one of the oppressor groups. Oh, you get fewer rights. You get hired, you get fired. You get special treatment. You get special treatment in the other direction. That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing to the whole. That's what the Democrats do everywhere they are in power. They turn whatever it is they're supposed to be doing into tools of the communist revolution, because the Democrat Party is the Communist Party. They are Marxists. All right? So you needed to hear that, and that's it. So have a nice day.